Before we get into people not being able to read, I need you to like, comment, and subscribe. I would appreciate that. Go ahead and comment and tell me how you feel about your day. How's your day going? Maybe you tell me your phone percent. Just put your phone percent or something. Just something crazy down in the comment section down below. I'm craving for engagement. Anyways, back to the video. The younger generation cannot read. They can speak, but they can't read. They don't know the words they're speaking, and they don't know actually how to spell the words they're speaking. Let me show you a bigger reason why that is. No, I think it's amazing that we can go to the store together. I just don't want to pick up anything crazy. Hit send, please. And then boom, you could just send that text message. As a matter of fact, if you want to watch something, if you hear a YouTuber say a word, you just kind of got to repeat what the YouTuber says when you're watching it. So a lot of iPad kids will actually repeat what a lot of YouTubers are saying. My niece has this issue. But the reason I'm talking about this subject today is because of this video I saw right here.
She wore a suit, clothes that were... Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
Now explain what that means.
I don't know. Oh,
She wore a sahalat of clothes that were extraordinary, whatever, bro, but somewhat gooch.
What does that mean?
She wore a lot. Wait, she wore, bro. I don't know, bro. Can you take the card back, please?
she wore a... Oh, baby. She wore a silhouette of clothes that were... Bitch, I don't know that word. I don't even know how to read. I don't know why I did.
She wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary, but somewhat gauche.
All right, now what does that mean?
I have no idea. Like his clothes was nice or something like that.
She wore a. I don't know what this should say. I don't know what this should say. I don't know what this should say. I can't read it. Can't read it. Can't read it. Can't read it. Cancel. Cut.
Now, my first reaction to that video wasn't to insult the people, the kids in the video, that they couldn't read the sentence of, she wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary but somewhat gauche. For starters, I just want to take apart the sentence for a second. She wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary but somewhat gauche. She wore a silhouette, so she wore a shadow of clothes. She wore something that would drape her. A silhouette of something would be something that covers her. A silhouette, it's a cover, the shadow, the cover of the night. Of clothes that were extraordinary, that means they're great, but somewhat gauche. That means tacky or unrefined or just weird and simple. The construction of this sentence is something you might see that were maybe somebody's trying to copy Shakespearean language, but I feel as though they're a bit older, maybe a 1900s, maybe 1800s kind of sentence. You might see this in a war letter to somebody, in a British nobleman's diary of some sort. That's what you're seeing. Now, I want to point this out. It is not the kids' fault in this video that they cannot read. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's their fault in any capacity that they're having an issue with silhouette, which is not an American word, and gauche, which is a French word, I'm pretty sure. Those words are not common words you would see in any capacity. As a matter of fact, have you ever seen the word rendezvous spelled? This is the word rendezvous. When I first saw this word, I didn't even have an idea. I didn't have a single idea on how to pronounce this word. I didn't know what this word was. I said rendezvous. Rendezvous is what I said. I couldn't have guessed that this was a French word, because guess what? I didn't know French. I'm not gonna comment that all the kids in the video were black either, showing that it is also an issue that a lot of black kids are not being able to read in the school system, showing that that is also a problem as well. Feels very targeted somehow. I'm not really quite sure how to put that into words, but it does feel indefinitely targeted. I'm going to show you a paragraph that I wrote using the common vocabulary that I usually use. I usually stop at a 10th grade level about words that I use. That's exactly where I stop at when it comes to words, because most people won't understand things I say at an 11th grade or 12th grade or a freshman years of college vocabulary level. So let me show you the sentence. The situation escalated into a more intricate and volatile discussion as individuals rushed to assert their viewpoints without thoroughly evaluating the underlying information. Many participants attempted to project intellectual authority by using sophisticated vocabulary and making assertive claims, even while their reasoning lacked coherence and logical consistency. This tendency often intensified amplifies miscommunication and fuels unnecessary conflict, especially when emotional responses overshadow critical analysis. A more effective approach involves pausing to assess the evidence, articulating ideas with clarity, and engaging in a respectful discourse, since deliberate thinking fosters stronger conclusions. When people approach conversations with a more analytical and composed mindset, they can transform disorder into clarity and encourage more constructive and meaningful dialogue. I wrote this sentence just kind of on a whim. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just me just kind of freeballing and spitting based on me having a conversation from earlier. But I'm going to bump this up to a higher sophistication about where my level of vocabulary stops completely. The discourse metastasized into an exceptionally intricate and volatile intellectual milieu as participants perceptuously advance their assertions without undertaking rigorous interrogation of the underlying evidentiary framework. Numerous individuals endeavored to project erudition through the ostentatious deployment of elevated diction and emphatic proclamations, even when their arguments were bereft of structural coherence, analytical depth, and logical validity. This tendency invariably amplifies epistemic distortion and exacerbates superfluous contention, particularly when impulsive affect supersedes disciplined critical reasoning. A more efficacious methodology necessitates deliberate introspection, comprehensive synthesis of extant information, and a precise, judicious articulation of ideas. As such practices facilitate more substantiated and defensible conclusions. When individuals engage in discourse with a composed, methodical, and intellectually rigorous orientation, they can transmute conceptual ambiguity into lucidity and cultivate dialogue that is both constructive and substantially meaningful. No one talks like that. No one on this earth talks like that. As a matter of fact, you can get most points across by speaking pretty regularly and not doing this brouhaha, this big ramble rouse of just intricate words for the sake of sounding pretentious. I could do that all day and I would accomplish 0 things, and people would just say, man, you use a lot of big words. I'm not going to do that because I want to have a conversation. I want to communicate. I don't want you to hear a word and have to Google it or not know the word. I don't want you to do that. I do think there's a huge anti-intellectualism issue in America, but I think the fact that a lot of kids are not being able to read is not an issue of the children. I'll present to you a situation that happened with my niece to give you a better example of this, right? My niece, her name is Akira. Akira. Her name is Akira Toriyama. That is literally her name. Her first and middle name are Akira Toriyama. Then it's my last name, Whaley. So this is the biggest issue. She cannot read, period. She is 11 years old. She can't read a single word. Why is that? Well, she only knows basically Five Nights at Freddy's. That's basically all she knows. She is left on her iPad all day. I can't really change the situation because I'm not close enough to the entire situation to be there. She lives much further from me, and I can't really call anybody to have anybody check on her. But she can't read big words or anything of that variety. She is passing high school. Sorry, not high school. She's passing middle school. I don't know why I said high school. That's crazy. She's passing middle school right now off the skin of her teeth by using voice to text and then writing and copying the words from voice to text onto her pages. And also, a lot of schools have adopted using a lot of voice to text stuff and a lot of pads. We had to get her a laptop for middle school because a lot of her essays are written instead of being written out. Like, they're typed instead of written, and that's what's going on. She has no requirement to learn how to write or ever read ever again. She can use ChatGPT and write all the homework she ever needs to. She doesn't even need to learn math because she can plug into the problems into ChatGPT and have all the math questions answered for her. There's really no need to it. So we are creating a very dependent society of people who do not actively do that. As a matter of fact, let me show you something. I'm going to read this article. Gen Z arriving at college unable to read. It's not even an inability to critically think. It's an inability to read sentences. And this is very important. This entire critique right here is not an inability to critically think. It's an inability to read sentences. Why is that important? This is important to me. This is wildly important to me because you can critically think about a lot of stuff. You can come to conclusions because you can regurgitate, let's say, my opinion on something. And then you would actively be saying the same thing I'm saying because you're not thinking about what I'm saying. You're just rehearsing what I'm saying. That's important. As the final waves of Gen Z, the youngest of whom are currently around 14, make their way through high school and into colleges and trade schools, some higher education instructors are noticing a severe lack of reading comprehension skills in their students. Schools, in turn, are finding the only path forward is to drastically lower their expectations for better or worse. That is a horrifying mindset to have. You should not lower your expectations for the greater bulk of people that are witnessing education. You should teach in a way to teach the least sophisticated person in the room. I think the hallmark of somebody that is a master educator, and the biggest reason why I'm able to actually learn anything and teach people anything, is by virtue of teaching it to the least sophisticated person in the room. I try my best to make content to where the dumbest person could possibly understand what I'm talking about. If I don't do that, then I do not encapsulate the greater bulk of broader content that I'm trying to do. It is sad to witness that people are actively giving up on the students who actively don't know how to read. That is bad. At Pepperdine University, literature professor Jessica Houghton Wilson told Fortune in a recent interview, "It's not an inability to critically think, it's an inability to read sentences." Wilson is one of the professors who had to quietly lower her academic benchmarks thanks to the rise in barely literate Gen Zers graduating American high schools. This is a problem. Despite my criticisms of Donald Trump, getting rid of the Department of Education to replace it with something better or reforming it is a smart idea if this is what a lot of college professors are having to deal with. Rather than assigning reading outside of class, the literature professor told Fortune she adopted a kind of in-class popcorn reading, reciting passages together and discussing them line by line. Even that, unfortunately, might be a bit of a stretch for students these days. It is your job as an educator, and it's not even this fault of this professor specifically, it is your job as an educator to actively teach these kids. Let's continue forward. I feel like I am tap dancing and having to read things aloud because there's no way that anyone can read it the night before. Wilson admitted even when you read it in class with them, there's so much they can't process about the very words that are on the page. And I like this article a lot because if you read deeper, it even saying it's worth pausing here to point out that you can't really blame younger people for struggling at that were once seen as academic basics. The school system is in shambles. Their education was bisected by the COVID pandemic, and they've been reared in a world that's increasingly de-emphasized reading in favor of videos, voiceovers, and other emerging forms of communication. This is insanely important. Understanding that it is not a true fault of these younger people that they do not have the ability or wherewithal to understand what the word wherewithal means, and I might even be using wherewithal incorrectly. Who knows? To truly understand the words they're reading or seeing on the page is a failure of how our content creation is going and how consumption is being viewed throughout an excessive medium. Still, the situation is creating practical problems. Timothy O'Malley, professor of theology at the University of Notre Dame, told Fortune that students showing up unprepared for class isn't necessarily new, but the lowered expectations are. In the past, O'Malley said he'd assign anywhere from 25 to 40 pages of reading per class. Students would either do it or they wouldn't. Nowadays, that much reading would be unthinkable. Today, if you assign that amount of reading, they often don't know what to do, he explained to Fortune, adding that most Gen Z students are skating on by AI summaries. They've been formed in on a kind of scanning approach to reading. The news of Gen Z's waning literacy comes along with a substantial kind of literacy acumen among Americans more broadly. Over the last 20 years, for example, the amount of adults reading recreationally in the U.S. has fallen by 40%. Meanwhile, a survey of the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, PAAC, found that 59 million Americans are reading at a level 1 competency or below, the level on the PAAC's 5-point scale. Whichever way you slice it, younger Americans are barely able to grapple with the written word. Short of the major structural changes to the U.S. education system, it's likely Gen Z won't be the last generation to experience worse literacy rates than the one that came before. I truly believe that a population of people that are anti-intellectual and don't have the ability to necessitate the ability to read is easier to manipulate. I think it's just easier to manipulate a bigger population in that variety, and that's just fair. I'll give you an example. I am not better than a lot of the propaganda that I criticize, to be quite honest with you. A lot of time I use clickbait thumbnails, a lot of time I use clickbait titles in order to get people to click on it, and people will comment on it, and I'm kind of relying on that rage bait comment in order to get the video pushed out so they can get to the greater bulk of this hour-long video that I made about literacy. I would like to show you a few videos on the subject by a few TikTok creators, so that's what I'm going to do now. Please get ready for that.
These kids can barely read. They can barely fucking read, and y'all arguing so they can say.
Can confirm, as someone who just started substitute teaching, I can confirm that everything that the lady said in the TikTok I just stitched is very true. These kids cannot read. My first substitute assignment, I subbed in for a middle school English teacher. She left a packet of work for her students to complete in her absence. She left instructions for me to follow, and I looked over the packet. I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty standard stuff. It was like grammar practice with commas. And then they had to do like a crossword puzzle with some vocab words, use the vocab words in a sentence. Like, I'm like, okay, this is basically your standard middle school busy work. I'm like, they'll knock this out. And then I figured they would be chill. Boy, was I wrong. The first thing that really shocked me was the fact that I had to tell so many students to write their name on their paper. And then when they did, they would only write their first name. No last name, no date, no period they were in, none of that. I'm like, why do I have to tell y'all to write your full name? And then the penmanship, my God. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, y'all are what, 7th grade? Why are y'all writing like some of them wrote like a 2nd or 1st grader. Like in terms of the penmanship, the quality, I'm like, this looks like chicken scratch. And so the writing, because reading and writing are, let's be clear, the two go together. So that should have been my first clue, honestly.
Gen Z can't read. I'm talking to teachers from my high school who are saying, we're not reading books anymore, we're reading excerpts of books. Gen Z is utilizing TikTok summaries of books to write the damn report. They're also out here complaining when they get a big ol' F on that. Zillennials were the ones who were at the peak of public education. We had to read, not just a book, we had to read books.
Gen Z don't know how to read, man. That means I'm part of the last generation that can read. I got y'all all on these audio books, man. You having somebody read to you. They saying that's why the music sucks. Cause Gen Z don't know how to read. I ain't gonna lie to you. I wanna live in one of these homes.
Read the time off this clock correctly, you win the clock.
Dude, I've never seen one of these before. I'm used to digital, man.
You haven't seen a clock before?
No.
Okay.
7:12.
Sure.
Is it 12:10?
12:10.
12:09?
12:09. Yeah, you're close.
No, 9:25.
9:25. Close, you're 5 minutes off.
It's 9:02.
9:02.
2:09.
2:09. Okay.
Why would it be 9:02? Why would we be in school at 9:02? Why wouldn't we be in school at 9:02?
Okay. So what's the conclusion, guys?
9:02. 2:09.
Okay.
Like 6:74.
Is it 3 o'clock?
AM or PM?
Gotta be AM, bro.
So what that was a lot of critiques about Gen Z not being able to tell time, not being able to read, a lot of stuff, that variety. I want to point this out about the clock thing as well. Who cares about analog clocks? You can look at your phone and tell the time immediately. It's 11:53 on May 1st where I'm at right now, dude. It's in the morning and I'm having a great time. I really don't have a reason to know an analog clock. It seems pointless to know analog clocks when you can get the time by any metric of value. We have a much more efficient way to tell time by using the actual numbers on a thing as opposed to an analog clock. Analog clocks are outdated. Before I get into my rant about why the Gen Z can't read, I do want to state another pre-rant to state the fact that obviously the older stuff that millennial stuff know right now, I'm 30 by the way, the older stuff that millennials know and things of that variety is wildly outdated. Who cares if a kid doesn't know? You guys have no idea about VHSs or DVDs. You sound like your parents. Are you aware you sound like your parents? You sound exactly like your parents. That is a bad thing to sound like, by the way. You don't want to sound like your parents. These kids have no idea what it was like to grow up actually having to... Yeah, because things evolved. That's what happened. That's the reality of what happened. But the reason they can't read, that's what I want to talk about. That's the bigger issue. I think it's very upsetting about hearing students arriving at college unable to read sentences with any string of confidence. It sounds quiet and real at the same time. Feels like it's happening only in your city, but every city is having this. I'm talking about something really basic. It's trying to run without realizing your legs forgot how to stand up, right? The sentence itself is becoming a wall. The habit of moving through them has weakened in a way that is so counterintuitive to how we process things. Staring at a paragraph, looking at it, you can recognize each word individually. However, stringing them together is this uphill battle that's crazy. Everyone wants a villain in this story too. Someone to point out, this is where it broke, this person, this policy, this technology. I think it's worse than that. It's a slow erosion, years of it, systems stretching thin in ways that do not make the headlines that you only read, underfunded, overburdened, forced to prioritize survival over deepness, standardized tests ate the curriculum, teachers left, classrooms swelled, the act of reading became less of a foundation and more of an optional lane. Students learn how to get through, not to sit with language, because school has never been truly engaging for a lot of people. And because it's not truly engaging, I remember so adamantly how deeply I just wanted to get it done. I learned very little from actual schooling. I had to go learn things by myself because my teacher just handed out assignments and expected us to get it. And a lot of the time, the class was not actively invested in a lot of the stuff, and the teacher would just actively give up on the entire class and say, we're not going to do anything today since you guys want to be ridiculous. And then she would give homework and we'd all suffer because of one bad student punishing the class, and then that would cause the student to actively get bullied by everybody in the class because we'd have to do nothing in class, and thus that would make that student resentful, and then it would make it bad on that student. The student will be even more outlandish because he's getting attention, and that created YouTubers. That's annoying. I think a lot of YouTubers are kids who were the most annoying in class, or the class clowns, and then they got the ability to be the class clowns a lot of the time. That's a lot of YouTubers. I'm a lot of YouTubers. But nobody knows how to wrestle with a dense paragraph until it surrendered its meaning. They just get through. And I think that's the phrase that haunts me. Get through the assignment. Get through the class. Get through the year. Nobody is saying stop and really understand this. Everyone was too busy getting through themselves. Nobody does this. And I do think a big issue was the pandemic. I don't know if you remember COVID, but a lot of streamers became wildly popular during COVID. That means a lot of kids, a lot of people were spending a lot of their time watching a lot of streamers, and people were getting crazy money at the time as well because of the stimulus checks and as well as the just unemployment that people were getting because they weren't allowed to actually see people. And that caused people to not have to do classwork. People couldn't literally go to school. It is a sudden fracture. Whatever fragile structure was already holding things together split right down the middle. Learning moved online. They couldn't actually see things in person. People could watch a YouTube video instead of doing that. Then they could have their friends explain to them. Nobody needed to write down notes. Attention fractured even further. The accountability blurred into something so soft and inconsistent. Entire years of development drifted without the same structure that once anchored them. Not just mixed lessons, missed habits. It's whole thing. Missed repetitions. Missed quiet moments of struggling through text until it makes sense. Those moments are not necessarily glamorous. A lot of delayed gratification in those. They don't show up in educational research as big milestones. They're a small daily grind of reading something hard, failing to understand it, reading it again, still not getting it, reading it a third time, and then the click. That click happens a lot less now. So a lot of time I'll make a video, right? And I will feel a certain way about the video. And I may make a follow-up video because I feel different about the video I made before because I realized something that is important. People say, oh, you're a shill, you did a 180. Yes, that's the point. I learned something new, and now I have a new opinion on the situation. That's how it works. Worst thing here is that outside of the classroom, the world will keep accelerating in a different direction entirely. Video is becoming the dominant language of how people interact with things. Now, usually I would have subtitles on these videos. I have stopped using subtitles on a lot of these videos because subtitles tank my retention. I'm not gonna lie to you. Subtitles tank my retention so deeply. Videos have to be fouled. Fouled is not a word that I know. Don't know where that came from. I was trying to mix fast and loud because I was speaking too fast. Videos have to be fast, loud, and immediate. They're designed to deliver meaning without asking you to work for it. Voiceovers guide you through arguments. Captions summarize entire points. Editors cut dead air and dead end. And that's good because if I kept all the dead air between these words, you would leave the video. It would suck. It would suck entirely. I would hate that. It would be so agitating. Even editing that part, future me, I'm sorry you had to edit that. It just probably sucked. Future me here. It did suck to edit that. I did not enjoy doing those cuts. That was a little tedious. I had to get the lining. I'm not going to explain it. It was a little tedious. The rough edges of understanding get smoothed over before you ever feel them. Algorithms feed you exactly what you are likely to understand without resistance. The muscle of reading stopped being exercised because everything around you offers you a shortcut. Why push through a 5-page article when a 2-minute video tells you the same thing? Why decode a dense paragraph when someone else has already done the decoding for you? The logic is sound. However, the consequence behind that logic is so quiet. The consequence is students who never had to sit alone with the difficult text and figure it out themselves. And I want to point this out, right? I am saying they can't read. I'm not saying they are unintelligent. I'm not saying they're not incapable. They are simply unpracticed in a skill that used to be reinforced daily without question. Their intelligence expresses differently. I'm pretty sure they can interpret tone in a video instantly. They can follow complex narratives across clips and trends. They can communicate in ways that feel natural to their environment. The environment just does not include long-form text as a primary medium. That's important. When faced with dense prose, their brain hesitates. It's because it has not been asked to do the particular work consistently. And I think hesitation is often getting mistaken for inability, and that gap gets read as a deficit. The student internalizes that reading is not for them. And that just makes sense, because why would I learn a skill that is not going to benefit me in any capacity?
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Please don't get mad at me. But y'all kids, parents, y'all kids cannot read, and they cannot write, and they cannot spell. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm sorry, I didn't want to say it because I hate talking about these kids on here, because I don't want them talking about me. But as a vast majority of students that I teach in my class do not know how to read, write, comprehend, critical think. They just cannot. Okay. I gave a test last week, and I'm going to just point out some of the words these kids asked me for, what the meaning was. I thought this was just basic stuff. You know, we should kind of know. High school, they should know. Girl asked me, what is the word candidate? A candidate. What does that mean? Evaluator. Distinguished. Objective. Catalog. Panel. A panel of people. Occupation. Qualification. What else is another word? Persuasive. Salutation. That's a big one. Salutation. You may not know what that word is. That's a greeting. Hello or goodbye. But these are just some of the basic words. Okay, these is high school kids from 14 to 18, you know, teenagers that don't get basic words. Okay. It just gets to a point when I say some students won't even attempt to take the test because they can't read. They won't even look at the test. I had a student that guessed on everything because they didn't want to do it. Didn't want to read it, didn't understand it, just don't know. But they are sitting in my class as a 10th grader on track to graduate and cannot read, cannot write. I'm just saying, y'all, it is a pandemic. These kids cannot read, they cannot write, and they dang sure can't spell.
One of the comments states on that video is insane. We used to read chapters of books out loud during class. I was always chosen to read. We were reading Langston Hughes in the 4th grade. And this comment is, I have an issue with this entirely. I'm going to give you a fun little brain thing right here, a fun little scenario. Let's say Sally has 5 sandwiches and Susie has 12 sandwiches. Sally has to go to the bathroom, and then Susie ends up taking those 5 sandwiches. So where does the other girl look for the sandwiches? Does she know the other girl took the sandwiches? No, she doesn't know. Because we have information that the other girl doesn't have. She doesn't know the one girl took the sandwiches. We don't know that. You cannot assume everybody has the same level of information. I remember so often in my Discord when I speak to people, they often say, well, how do you not know about the situation? It's everywhere. Because I don't know. This information has never occurred to me. I learned about Stanley Cups 5 days ago. I didn't know about Stanley Cups 5 days ago. Didn't really know about that. As a matter of fact, I think it was when I was, oh my God, 23. I'm 30 now. When I was 23, that's when I discovered what a non-binary person was. Like 7 years ago. I didn't know what a non-binary person was. I had no clue what that was. I didn't know about that. I had no clue. And people say, you should know about this. You got to stay informed. No idea. Never came across my purview. I don't know much about basketball. I don't know much about Messi or Ronaldo. I don't know these people. I don't know these things. Assuming that basic information is basic information isn't true, because common sense is not common. Common information is not common. Insulting and attacking these kids in this variety and videos like this are causing these kids to feel shame about things they don't know, because they need to learn these things. So when it happens, when they need to learn what a word like silhouette, it's important to know these words. And also, on the word silhouette, English is such a dumb, stupid language. I hate it so much, because silhouette, the origins of the etymology, is derived from the name Etienne de Silhouette. It's a French word. If you go to Googlepedia, it's a French word, a traditional silhouette of the portrait. A silhouette, English and French, is so a silhouette is an image, a person depiction of a scene representing a solid edge, usually black with its edges matching outline and the shape. This is a French word. The word silhouette is derived from the name. It's a French finance minister who in 1799 was forced by France's credit system during the Civil War to impose severe economic demands upon the French people, particularly the wealthy. You probably don't care about the history of the word silhouette. Doesn't really matter. But this is not an English word. It is a French word. I hate when people use words from other languages to not understand things, because if I use Japanese words or Chinese words, like if I actually pronounce this, right? Say the name. What does this say? What does this word say? What is this? Oh, would you say Liu Bi? No, it's Liu Bei. Liu Bei. Liu Bei. That's like, it's Chinese. Very difficult pronunciation for me because I have an American accent. Liu Bei. This name right here is not Sun Wukong. It's Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong. This name is not Akainu. It's Akainu. Akainu. Inu is dog. It's red dog. Aka, red. Inu, dog. Akainu. Akainu is the word. But I'm not going to harp on you of pronunciation of words that don't have an inherent English meaning, by the way. That seems, I don't know, a little bit pretentious to do so. Seems a little bit insane to do that. I just want to point that out. I think the deeper issue hides underneath how do we define literacy in a world that has expanded beyond traditional formats. Reading used to be the primary gateway for information, knowledge, participation in academic and professional stages. All of it ran through text. Now, text competes with formats that feel more accessible and more engaging on the surface. Let's say audiobooks, right? If you read audiobooks or if you listen to audiobooks, you're not less than a reader because you're getting the same exact information. You can still participate in the discussion and you can still critically think with the discussion. That doesn't make you less than the other person. You are the same level as the person. The other person just reads words more than you, perhaps. But I made a video a while back saying that audiobooks are not reading. You are simply getting the exact same information and knowledge of a reader, but you are not reading. And I still hold by that because it is more accessible. Let's say someone is blind, they can learn Braille. Braille is reading. But okay, let's say that it's accessibility, and I'm not being ableist by saying this point. I'm pointing out a difference in two things. It is very simply put, you can still absorb the information the same. You can still compete in critical discussion. It is the way you absorb the medium of it is a difference in that aspect. I'm stating that difference, not dehumanizing or decrediting the aspect of how you learned that specific thing. I'm stating a difference, not saying that you are beneath me for that difference. As I was stating before, a video does hold your attention differently. It moves, it breathes, it shows what words have to describe. The question is not whether one format is better than the other. The question is whether the system adapted fast enough to integrate these changes, or did it simply resist them while quietly losing ground? Because that's what it is. Blaming Gen Z for this gap is so lazy. Criticizing someone for not mastering a tool they were not consistently given or encouraged to use is insane to do. They grew up in an environment that rewarded speed, reaction, and visual comprehension, hence why big words look good. We are in the, I'm gonna call it the Balatro era of what we are in. Let me explain why it's called the Balatro era. Have you ever seen Balatro gameplay? Balatro is a excessively complex and difficult game to play and understand. It requires the balancing of jokers. It requires a lot of other systems being understood. But if somebody were watching this game, they'd see number go up, they'd see big multiplication, they'd see flashy things on screen, they'd see the mults go up, and then they'd see those numbers create a bigger number and not know what's going on, and they see just big number go up. It's basically playing with a calculator and constantly hitting ×2 on the calculator to get a big number number going up. And games have adopted just this base thing of just saying, okay, so we see the cards, okay, that gets plus 41, okay, plus 8 mult, plus 10, and then plus 9 again. Oh, that's good. That's a red seal. Who knows what that means, but it's plus 2. And then multiplication, because there's a calculator on the left where the numbers go up. And then you see that numbers go up and it met the score. Oh, I meet score, big number go up. And that's really dumbing down Balatro, which is my favorite game of all time. I have exactly 4,213 hours in the game, but that is basically what's going on. You get big number and it go up. We have created an entire society that is built basically like Balatro is, with DoorDash, with reward systems. With if I get a number 1 video, I get this confetti screen that appears in my analytics screen, and it just makes me feel so giddy every time I get that big video and it gets me a 1 out of 10 and I go crazy. It's when it lasts 48 hours and it goes crazy. That's the society we've built. Gen Z has become fluent in that language of visual comprehension because that is what the world around them demanded, expecting them to seamlessly transition back into reading heavy. And this is crazy. It's dumb. And you can't get back into that environment without acknowledging that shift ignores the reality of how habits form. You cannot spend years training a brain to move one way and then act surprised when it struggles to move another. The brain is plastic. The brain also needs time and repetition to rewire. That is why I think with enough repetition, you can learn to love anything mundane. Little people don't know this about me, right? Every single day, I wake up and I hit 10 push-ups. Now, this seems stupid to say just 10 push-ups is a small number, but because I did that for 4 years straight, I did that over and over again. That habit is horribly ingrained in me. I stopped for a little bit and I got an itch in my body to do those 10 push-ups. Now, for the past, I think it's been 7 years now, 7 years, I've been hitting 10 push-ups every single day, no matter how tired I am, no matter where I'm at in life. I do that every single day because it's written in my brain. I also stretch every day too. That's also an important thing I have to do. You just can't do that. That's important because your brain does that. The brain learns through repetition. I think the consequence of this gap is real though. Higher education still relies heavily on reading as a core method of engagement. Without that foundation, student starts at a disadvantage that compounds very quickly. First semester is going to feel confusing, second semester is going to feel overwhelming, and then you're going to fail out of college. And you know what's crazy about this entire system, right? You know what sucks? This isn't by accident. Governments have designed this so perfectly. Picture this, right? How do you get into college? You pay a crazy amount of money or you take out a student loan. You can't afford a student loan, but you need to go to college so you can get a better job so you can actually live your life and actually do things you want to do. So the government offers free college through the army. So the government has created a bunch of ways to keep you oversaturated and keep you stuck in the attention economy. So they work with advertisers by, you guessed it, lobbying for certain laws that don't punish advertisers for doing manipulative business practice, that things such as loot boxes or things in video games and monetization practices that are disgusting and keeping you as a consumer. So it continues down this infinite pathing loophole where you're stuck in a self-eating or a moral self. I need a higher education and get a better job. I can't read. The society that is built has taught me that reading is pointless and I don't need to read. To get a higher education, I'd have to read. It's insane. You can't expect the level of introspection when that was never taught to people in the first place. And by the end of the first year, the gap has widened. It's not even because people are less capable. The gap was never addressed. It was just expected to close itself. Comprehension suffers. Analysis suffers. Writing suffers. Writing cannot outrun reading. If you cannot read a text closely, you cannot write about it meaningfully. The two skills are locked together, smooching on each other, lovers. You love to see it. And the students know this. They can feel it, and every time they have to stare at a syllabus full of reading they cannot finish, their confidence erodes. They start to believe they do not belong, and that self-loathing causes them to watch slop content everywhere so they can stop thinking. So they doom scroll, creating an infinite scroll of people that are at a mental health disadvantage as well, which causes them to actually feel horrifying. Then they get on SSRIs, then they feel bad, they can't afford therapy, they have to get insurance, but they need insurance, they need job for insurance, so they can't afford therapy because they don't have the insurance to do so. We've created a self-sucking loop of a trap that destroys people at a fundamental level where nobody can afford to actually get better in higher education, and we are dogging them for it, and we're getting money for dogging them, and I'm not going to do that. I don't want your belief to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The solution to this is not shame. Shame never taught anyone to read. You know what my favorite movie is? It's a movie called Matilda. Matilda is this Omega level mutant inside of a family of abusive parents that learns how to use her psychic abilities based on her reading, and she expands her mind. It's a beautiful movie. Danny DeVito made it, and it's one of the better movies I've seen in my entire life. learns to read by herself. She has an invested interest in the library and an invested interest in learning more about the world around her, that hungry curiosity for anything. She wasn't shamed in anything of that variety. Shame creates this avoidance, and that's bad. It's horrifying. The solution requires intention and patience, not just the expectation that you should have information that everybody else knows. Reintroducing reading in a way that feels relevant and accessible, creating space for students to rebuild that rhythm without treating it as a deficiency. Small text first. High engagement, discussion that makes the effort feel worthwhile, gradually increasing difficulty as the muscle strengthens, the same way you would trade any other skill. No one expects to run a marathon after years of sitting on a couch. No one should expect to read dense academic prose after years of consuming primarily video content. I'd like to bring up this article for a moment. Is the online streamer top's dream job for young Japanese kids? Older kids are not so interested, but this is a trend not just in Japanese media as well. In Tokyo, what do you want to be when you grow up? This is one of the questions educational publisher Gakuen asks Japanese kids in this annual survey about their hopes and ambitions for their futures. And when it comes to jobs they want to do as grown-ups, researchers say this year's top answer from elementary schools was online streamer. The result was obtained from polling 1,200 elementary school kids, 600 boys, 600 girls, who were allowed to give up to 2 answers for the question about their hoped line of work. Kids saying they wanted to become YouTubers or Instagrammers also had their responses included in a total for online streamer, so personal online content creator might be the more accurate description. But regardless of the format and whether it's streamed live for you, such responses passed up the #1 choice from last year's survey as pastry maker, which slipped to #2. And this is the responses right here. Now, people still want to be a pastry maker in Japan. It's different. You can argue that the thing is crazy and different in Japan, but ask any kid you know. Just go out and ask a child. There are hundreds of articles talking about how kid content creators are repackaging their videos for streaming and reaping the rewards. All this stuff about how people, I can't read this article because of the plan, but there's a lot of stuff where you can actually read up and see that a lot of kids want to be content creators. The world has changed. The way we receive information has changed. Pretending otherwise helps no one. Adopting and adapting does not mean abandoning traditional literacy. Adapting means integrating, finding ways to bridge the gap between video literacy and text literacy, using the strengths of one to support the other. A video can build context. A video can generate curiosity. A video cannot replace the deep processing that happens when you read something solely. Reread it, argue with it, write notes in the margin. That experience is unique to text. That experience is also teachable. It just needs to be taught explicitly and not assumed and not hoped for. Taught. All these teachers that are actively on TikTok saying, oh, well, Gen Z can't read. This is the worst thing ever. You're not helping the situation in any capacity. You are doing. What we are seeing is not a failing generation. It is a system shifting without fully supporting the people moving through it. The curriculum changed, the testing changed, the funding changed, the classroom technology changed, the amount of reading actually assigned and enforced changed. All those shifts happened while the expectation that students would somehow still arrive reading at grade level stayed the same. The expectation was always unrealistic. That is insane. It is not realistic anymore. It is cruel. It sets students up to feel like failures for circumstances they did not create. Reading can come back. The habit can be rebuilt, but it requires honesty about where things stand. Not some deep panic on TikTok, not blame. Honesty. It needs to say, we let this slide and now we have to be intentional about fixing it. That is not an indictment of anyone. It is a description of the terrain. The terrain shifted. We are still learning to walk on it. The students will learn too. They just need someone to show them the path exists, not to point at them from a distance. Just to walk it with them, to struggle through text together, to say, this is hard for me too sometimes, to normalize the struggle instead of hiding it. Because you know what's really important? No one wants to admit they're struggling, right? No one wants to say, oh, I'm having a hard time with this and I need help. It is so frowned upon in society nowadays to look explicitly weak about anything. There is this facade, however you may say it, of machismo, of bravado, of being masculine or being tough, even if you're a woman, to going through it alone because you have to do it by yourself, self-made, self-taught, self-referential, whatever it may be. The self is oneself, the great quiet battle with oneself. You gotta do it on your own, self-made, self-product. You don't have to do that. We are a social creature, us humans, together collectively. We want social things to happen. We have a community here on my YouTube. We have all of it. You can experience this together. It is not fair to tear apart somebody because they want community in some aspects. You don't have to do any of this alone. And I don't want you to feel like you are discouraged from asking for help in any way.
So why does asking for help make you feel uncomfortable? Why do you feel less than when you're asking people for help? Asking for help only feels like weakness if you've made independence your identity. It's only weak because you feel like you're supposed to be independent. And if you ask for anything, now you become dependent, and therefore you can't control the situation and the outcome. You need help now, and then that makes you feel weak, right? So that's the issue with people. Because you think if I need help, I'm failing. So what do? Push through, carry it alone, stay in silent, muscle through it. But God showed us too that that's a part of pride. Ego makes us do that. Somewhere along the line, you've learned this prideful kind of thinking that dependence equals weakness. That needing something, needing help equates to failure. That's not true. That somehow help directly equates to shame. If I do this, then shame, If I need help, shame. Again, that is pride wearing like the strong clothing. I gotta be strong, but it's really pride. You're being your own savior, basically. You don't need help, but every one of us needs help.
I am 30 years old, and I learned how to tie my shoes when I was 25 years old. And that was a big thing for me because I didn't understand how knots worked in any capacity. My technical skills in my hands is very low. I'm very horrible at writing. In terms of actual penmanship, I'm garbage at it. I'm not good at it in any capacity. I'm very good at talking. I'm very articulate when I speak, but that's because I speak to people, not because I write down a lot of stuff. I just talk to people all day. And when I'm done with this, recording this video, I'm gonna go right outside and talk to homeless people. That's what I do all day. That's basically my entire day. But I remember asking my mom and saying, hey, I never learned how to tie my shoe. And she said, you can just wear slip-ons, which are more accessible for me because if every shoe required me to tie my shoes, I'd be walking around with 4 pairs of socks on, and that would suck like crazy, and people will be questioning me, think I'm trying to start a new trend. But I'm not. I just don't understand how to tie my shoes. And I learned how to tie my shoes, and I got it done. Nobody would know that I didn't know how to tie my shoes for 25 years of my entire life, but I figured it out. Same with riding a bike. I learned how to ride a bike when I was, I think, 13, maybe? 13? It took me a second to learn how to ride a bike because I couldn't figure out how to balance myself on the bike. I still don't know how to skate, and I know how to ride a skateboard, but I can only ride a longboard. That's the base I got. Asking for help and figuring things out is very important to the human experience, to having communication. When I look at art, right, whenever I see a piece of art, the first thing that goes through my mind is, I wonder what the person felt with this. I wonder what's going on there. A big reason why I devalue AI art in its totality is because I cannot feel what the person went through when the art is being crafted. There is no medium for me to feel. It is doing a mimicry of the connection that I want from a human when I look at a piece of art. That is very important to me. There are a multitude of artists that I respect with my whole chest that I wish would have bigger presences in my life. They would be amazing. They are great artists, and I respect all these artists indefinitely. They're on the screen right now, by the way. They're on the screen. I ask you this as a consumer of content, as somebody that probably watches a lot of videos that consume a lot of things. I might be second monitor content. You might have me on the background. That may be the entire kick you're getting with me here. I ask you, is it fair to insult somebody who does not know something they have never heard of? Is that fair? Is it fair to judge all these kids and all these people and all this stuff and attack them and antagonize them in some capacity for not knowing? Is that what's happening? Is that crazy? Who knows? I have faith in our ability as a society to grow and create an expansive dialogue with ways that are beyond the medium of text. Hopefully one day we'll all be able to communicate using our brains, and then we'll be able to connect through an infrared system of collective consciousness that will transcend the means of language overall. And maybe one day we'll be able to communicate through sign language. That'd be fun. That'd be outstanding. Or maybe one day we'll all be able to communicate with Braille. Or maybe we'll be able to communicate through scents and smells like animals. Maybe that will happen one day. I just hope that one day we all collectively stop insulting people for being a little bit less sophisticated about certain subjects that aren't common information and common day zeitgeist. I feel saddened by this. A lot of people credit my amazing speaking ability to reading or something of that variety, but little known fact, and you may not know this, I used to have a speech impediment like crazy. It sucked like nuts. Oh my goodness. I had a speech impediment. I had a stutter that would ruin the way I spoke, but I practiced. I did tongue twisters every single day in the mirror. I spoke to people. I continually reread sentences over and over again until I got to the point where I didn't have any stagnation with my speech, and then I became wildly articulate as a means of combating myself because I refused to let myself be defeated by an idiot or a hater, and I myself was an idiot to myself, and I didn't allow that to happen. That is the great divvying battle with oneself. And I had help from others, so many people. I had help from librarians. I had help from my mother. I had help from my father. I had help from my brother. I had help from my friends who didn't insult me and shame me for not being able to read big, sophisticated, psychotically large words. That was outstanding. And even sometimes I use words that don't actually have the meaning of those words. They don't actually mean the things that I think they mean, and sometimes I'm just using the words to fill in the words that I think they mean. And I will learn in the future. Somebody will correct me. I like to learn things. I like to correct myself on information that I do not know. I like to expand my reasoning and dialogues. I like to understand things that are better for the common zeitgeist of conversation. I enjoy speaking. I just love this so much. And I hope that as you grow as a person, as you collect information throughout all your mentors and people in your lives, you also learn to grow and become a bigger expander when it comes to expanding your mind and brain into things you don't really grasp or understand. With that being said, I hope that this video was in some ways helpful. So we've reached the tail end of the video. If you've gotten all the information you needed, you can go ahead and click off the video, but I'm going to pitch a few things here to you. I have a side channel, CEROS Live, where I post my live stream clips, and we usually get on some fun discussions over there. I'm trying to get that channel big, and by the end of May, I want to get that channel to 10,000 subscribers. That would make my week so happy. So if you're new to the channel and you want to subscribe to the second channel and you enjoy the way that I speak right here, you might enjoy the way that I speak over there, which would be really cool, because if I can't make a big video on this channel, I usually am going to talk about it on the side channel. Pretty much same thumbnails as well as that variety as well. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. A lot of people just watch the video and then they don't comment and subscribe, and it's like 20,000 views and then 2 likes, and I'm like, wow, this is horrifying. Come on, guys, let me get a little bit of expansion out of my video. Come on. I know you're probably going to see big number and check mark and think that I usually get a lot of views, but I've been trying to streamline and center down what I've been doing recently. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe in that variety, and put on the notifications bell if you can. Also, I have a Patreon. Big videos like this are possible because of my Patreon. That's why this video is an hour long. And you're probably thinking, how long do you make hour-long videos? More than likely daily. I'm not gonna lie to you, probably daily is how I'm gonna make hour-long videos. That's how the trend seems to be going right now for me, because it seems to be the easiest way for me to make videos, is making them with all my thoughts expanded upon things. And I appreciate you guys for making it to the video, and through the video, and to the end of the video. That is impressive and amazing, and you have done a good stretch and measure of how you do things. Hopefully you can put me on the background and have me as just some residual noise going on as you trickle down and do your other tasks and dailies. That'd be fun. Maybe you're playing Rocket League. Maybe you're playing Diablo. Maybe a new expansion of a game came out. Maybe you're enjoying Marvel Rivals and you don't want to turn on team comms because you actually refuse to actually have team comms be in a video game because you think everybody around you plays bad and you're the greatest person to ever play. Maybe you're playing Poppy in League and you're playing top lane. I want to point this out. I'm actually banned from League of Legends, and I've been banned in League of Legends for quite some time. Who knows? I'm not quite sure. But let me know your favorite grilled cheese recipe in the comment section down below. I put cream cheese and regular American cheese on my grilled cheese. I know some people that I put mayo on it. Also, I also saw this video on, I forgot what channel it was. They're making a bunch of grilled cheeses, and I discovered that maybe I make grilled cheese a bit differently than most people, because those guys make grilled cheese and they were making sandwiches that I never considered to be grilled cheeses. But maybe I'm crazy about that. With that being said, have a lovely day or night wherever you're at, and I'm out. Peace. Bye.
I'm your Nick at night, be my Laura Angelo. Ooh, happy to try what you need. Your world, I love to live in it. Ooh, I love the ride when you